Okay. Okay. So I feel very privileged today to have Chana Rus. Not only is she an amazing, brilliant healer who has helped, I don't even know how many, but Chana Rus is really quite remarkable and a very, very good friend. We've had many long conversations about healing and life and spirituality and how it's all connected. And we want Chana Rus to come back to Eretz Yisrael quickly. We miss her here. So Chana Rus is a sought-after educator and thought leader on self-governing family systems and the microbiome, focusing on their impact on health, food systems, God consciousness, and relationships. For close to 3 decades, she has taught root cause solutions for human, spiritual, and ecological health, integrating a broad range of modalities and Torah wisdom across the spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical planes. Her work spans diverse disciplines, including soil and water ecosystems and human genomics, natural immunity, gut-brain health, emotional release and relationships, and self-governing family units. Chana advocates for breaking away from harmful cultural norms such as chemical farming, pharmaceutical overuse, standardized education, and for sovereign family systems. Through her ongoing work, Chana provides practical guidance for women and families to reclaim sovereignty, discover their body's healing potential, and connect with their Torah identity and innate wisdom. With that, I feel so privileged and grateful. Chana Rus, are you there? Chana Rus, you have to take your video off. No, you have to. No. Put your video back on. I meant you have to unmute. Now your video showing, but you're muted.
Okay, there
you are.
Thank you. We knew we were going to have to learn all this tech. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's really an honor to be here. That was lovely energy to wake up to this morning. I am in Miami, Florida, and I am here today to speak to you about transcendence and health. And the last time I was here, we talked about family systems and parenting and awakening our parenting potential and homeschooling. And today I want to go into a different department of our family life and speak about how we can walk on the planet in a way that keeps us consistently connected to the intrinsic body wisdom and medicine that we have. So with that, I think I'll start. I want to share my screen, but I'm not sure that it's going to work so good. So let me
Okay, one second. I have to make you, give me a second. I just have to co-host you. Okay, there you go. You're co-hosted. Now you can use the screen. Do you see?
I can. Let me just see. Hang on for a minute.
See. Whiteboard meeting study app. Most tools. Here. Okay, one second. I'm going to let you share the screen now. Okay. I just put on share screen. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'm just not able to. Oh, here we go. We're going to share. So this is going to be a pretty big presentation, but it's the best we can do. So what I'm doing is I'm opening up a course that I've been running for the high holidays during Elul, and it's called Intrinsic Transcendence. And it is a very quick 15-day course that takes you through 6 steps that have us what I call walking our prayer, that enable us to really tap into our ancestral wisdom and our body's ability to heal itself. So the story that I'd like to tell first is my own, but that will lead into what I believe is your story as well. So let me just I'm gonna have to move some things here. All right, let's move over here to what we're going to cover. The first is that I am a woman in her 60s who, when I was in my 40s, I was 85% to 90% raw food vegan for 13 years. I thought I was doing everything right. I exercised, I had work I loved, I did yoga, I meditated. We lived the American dream on a tropical island in Southwest Florida. We had the house, the car, the kids. We were doing what we thought we were supposed to be doing. And after about a decade of living this beautiful life that we worked very hard to establish, I started to slowly not feel well. And in not feeling well, I started to gain a lot of weight. And nobody could tell me what was going on. My testing looked well. I had energy, but just I was just off. A little brain fog, little congestion here and there. The energy was, I'm a high energy person, so I had the energy, but the energy was always with a little bit of pain, inflammation, things like that. So as time went on, starting to just try to get even healthier. And I was down to eating pretty much salads, and I was the queen of fermentation. So I was putting beautiful fermented foods into my body. At the time, I'm a homeschooling mama, and I've also am a homeschooler myself, grew up from my teenage years on as a homeschooler. I, along with my kids, collected a lot of modality certificates, licenses, degrees, homeopathy, herbology, aromatherapy, functional therapeutic nutritionist. And so I knew just enough to get myself in trouble. So all those ferments that I was eating literally woke me up paralyzed one day because the lactic acid buildup in the fermentation just caused what they call an anaphylactic shock. And I laid there for about an hour and a half, and I couldn't even blink my eyes. And in those moments, I was praying. Now, at the time, I wasn't religious. As a matter of fact, I would have labeled myself as atheist, but I was praying to a God that I didn't know. And in those prayers, I said, please, if you help me recover from this, I will share. I will do whatever you want me to do. And that began a story of coming home to Torah that led me to convert and go in the mikveh. And this Elul, sorry, I'm a little emotional about this because it was the most beautiful experience in spite of the catalyst that threw me into it. And this year, in Elul this year, I'm 8 years in as a part of the tribe. So during this journey of recovery, it took 7 years for them to figure out what was at the root that made my body just stop working. And in the end, I was congested with black mold. Mold had come into our Florida home, and it had just started taking up residency. And on top, and the reason it was able to do that was because my digestive tract lining was corroded. So one of my diagnoses was gastroparesis. My gastrointestinal tract just paralyzed and wasn't able to work anymore. And by the time we figured out that the mold was the issue, they were speaking about putting me on a feeding tube. At that time, no Western or even alternative medicine really understood what they understand today about mold and congestion and leaky gut and a microbiome that needs to have a lot of, trillions of beautiful microbials in it to govern us, et cetera, et cetera. So we began a journey of I spent 3 years in what I call an eco bubble. I couldn't go outside, and everything had to be pure and non-toxic. One of the other diagnoses was one where they call it tilt, which is a overabundance of toxicity that comes into the body and it stops you from being able to function. The brain fog was so severe I could hardly think straight and get through my days. So I sat in a sauna for 2 hours a day to pull that mold out of my body. I drank a liquid diet for 2 years. I followed an herbal protocol that was outrageous. And as I was going through this, I decided that I needed to understand. Thank you, Hashem. I got very curious about why would the body do this? You know, I have a beautiful garden patch, an organic garden that I played in all the time. We ate from. I'm eating mostly vegetables. Why would my body take this turn? And in the end, I went back to school to become a board certified holistic health practitioner in non-pharmaceutical medicine, which umbrellaed all of those modalities that I was talking about before. And what we now understand is that the toxicity on the planet is so much that our bodies are not able to function the way that they were intended to. And in that, we are becoming humans that are very comfortable in that discomfort. So that's going to lead me into telling you a story about what's happening to all of us, not just me. As I recovered, I started to understand the importance of the digestive tract lining, where the immune system sits, where the nervous system sits. I started to understand the importance of the microbiome being recolonized with beautiful microbials and fungi and protozoas. I started to understand that we don't necessarily want to kill things like viruses and bacterias and parasites. The idea is to live more in synergy with them. God didn't make any mistakes. And these things that are on the planet today are necessary. There's a beautiful synergy that we have with things that we look at today as they have to go, you know? So I would like to tell you a story about how we can live in synergy and use these organisms, these creatures, these fungus, in a way that help us walk on the planet and really bond with our creation. And what I have discovered with my Torah is the way that Hashem set up the blueprint. So what I'd like to do is lead out with a little bit of a negative. It's a terrible way for a lot of us to start our days, but it's critical that we understand exactly how toxic the planet is. So our body burden, just in newborns alone, they've done lots of studies. Oh, and everything that I'm talking about, I have a PDF that I'll source for you all. Okay, so just send me an email and I'll send it out to you. They've done lots of studies on umbilical cords of newborns, and they have found the highest count is 287 man-made chemicals in newborn umbilical cords. We literally start our lives with a body burden of toxicity that begins a journey of trying to adapt to this new pollution. And that's the beautiful thing about being human and connected to Hashem, is that we are miraculous, that we still are, for the most part, walking and talking and living our lives. But we have literally 6 billion pounds of pesticides being dumped on our planet, on our playgrounds, in our schools, in our homes, and on our food globally, yearly. I mean, it's amazing that we are able to function the way we are. Now, I've been in child development for 30 plus years. And this scenario about toxic poisoning and whatnot came into my life when we started to see children coming into our preschools and our schools who were getting diagnoses of ADHD, OCD, and then all of the spectrum disorders start coming in, and autism. So I am trained to work with families with autism. So a lot of the people that I work with are families that come in with one of their people that really are neuro different. And I have been blessed that I have seen children that are autistic wake up with a beautiful neurological biofeedback, transitioning therapeutic way, along with diet. The diet alone, with their understanding about autism and spectrum disorders and most of the mental illnesses that we see today, they all have at their roots a microbiome that is out of balance and very, very toxic. So when we take these beautiful autistic children and we clean up the toxicity in their bodies, they begin to wake up and thrive. So when you work with so many people like that and families like that, you can't unsee that. And when we look at the rampant rate of addiction that's on the planet today, it too has its foundation in toxic foods. So one of the things that I do in the work is I use what we call a colloquium. So I take how I homeschool. We take wonderful mentors and books, and we study different doctors and what they're talking about, and we actively bring those books to life in our life. So one of the books that we're using these days is called Good Energy by Casey Means. I highly suggest it. It is all about metabolic health. And her brother, she was a Stanford grad surgeon, ear, nose, and neck surgeon at the top of her game. And she walked away from that paycheck to tell us this story about what's happening with pharmaceuticals around the planet and what's happening with man-made chemicals. And her brother was a lobbyist in Washington, D.C., and he helped her author this book, Good Energy. And he also is what they call whistleblower, saying what is happening and how we're in this vicious cycle of governing our populace with ensuring that the kind of, let's say, education that our doctors get in school and the kind of, and the way of medicine, the Western medicine approach that is highly pharmaceutical, is missing the component of nutrition. And it's also very fragmented in the sense that when we talk about these pollutions and we think to ourselves, well, how could they spray so much on a planet? And why doesn't anybody know that it's bad for us? Well, the way of thinking about it is you're allowed to have so much come into a body, but all those fragmented pieces of each of the different products that go into our food supply or go into our medicines or go into our vaccines or whatever it is, each one has their standards of how much they're allowed to have, but nobody looks at the accumulation of all of it. And I'm here to tell a story of the rates of children coming into the planet today, the difference in the 30 years that I've done this work. They're just different creatures. They are not thriving. And this is the first generation that the scientists are telling us will not outlive their parents, God forbid. Now, that's a pretty strong statement. It's way above my pay grade to say that that's the case, but I am here to tell you that I'm very busy. And that's why there are so many practitioners that are coming into the alternative medicine world, because we just don't feel good. And it's because we have a very toxic body burden. So another doctor that we study is Dr. Zach Bush. He doesn't have a book, but he has a blog and a webpage. Once again, a top of his game, all the traditional universities, and he was a cancer researcher. And what he understood in studying how cancer comes into the body led him to believe, or led him to see, that the way that we treat these cellular mutations has everything to do with treating the symptom as opposed to understanding why they came to mutate to begin with. He learned, and is out there with a very large voice, talking about the soil. So I've been sitting in classes for the last 2 years with him and other uh, experts on what is at the root of everything, all these different diseases and viruses and whatnot that are on the planet today. And at the root is that we have a soil that is sterile, and that our soil is sprayed so much that there are no microbials. Now we all know that we Hashem made us from the earth, and everything about your humanness, when you look at your body under a cell, under a microscope, you would see that you are made up of trillions of microbials, these little creatures that live in our soil. We are them and they are us. And then the things that live inside of our cells and our microbiome, they are literally, the science is teaching us today that the fungi inside of us literally governs what viruses come or are activated, because viruses are already inside of us, by the way. We don't necessarily, quote, catch them. And what ones get activated, what sickness gets activated, what DNA markers will they activate? They do that based on the input. My call to action is that our bodies are not sick and disabled. They are literally doing something right for the input that they're getting. And if we change the input and return to the blueprint that Hashem put in place for us, our bodies are already the medicine that we seek. So how do we do that? It's actually a very simple 6-step process. We repair this digestive tract lining that houses our nervous system, that houses our immune system, that is a part of the 10 metabolic terrains that we have inside our body. We rewire the communication networks, and we do that through movement and bonding with the communication networks in nature on the planet. We recolonize with those lovely ferments as long as our bodies can handle it. We reset with detoxification, but we don't lead out with that. And I think that's one of the ways that I'm different than a lot of other practitioners. I've learned that a lot of bodies can't handle detoxification right away, and that we do not need to push on it. That if we go and we repair and we rewire and we begin the process of recolonizing with friendly flora, the detoxification and the scrubbing that happens is automatic. And we must understand that most of the way that we attack illnesses and kill illnesses and really go at them hard with a lot of remedies and whatnot, I'd like to invite you to reimagine with me a more gentler way of guiding our bodies in a returning process to the simple nature, the natural order of things. So as we use food and we use the sunshine and the earth, the grounding, and our thoughts, and we practice the rejuvenating therapies and activities that we all know and love, we literally can transform and transcend what it means to be a human on the planet. One of the things that's really, this is with Naomi and I have had a lot of conversations about this one, because it really sewed everything together for me. Physically, we should be eating well. And most of us understand that there's, toxins in our foods, and we should eat organic and try to find, farmers that are growing things in a very holistic way. But the unfortunate thing about the toxicity that's on the planet today, and my story is proof of that. I was completely organic as a raw food vegan for, over a decade of my life, and I still got sick. It's because a lot of these pesticides, especially the glyphosate that they put on the food, is water soluble, and it's collected up into the clouds. So even on our organic farms and whatnot, things are, the water is raining on them. So how then do we live? How do we take a body and give it different input? And so we focus on the mitochondria when it comes to this. And the thing that I'm excited about is that I literally can guide somebody to sit in the sun for 30 minutes a day, and their microbiome will start to recolonize in a very healthy way. When they study the cells, the mitochondria are the energy banks of our body. They are the fuel. They are also the keepers of our ancestral communication networks. We have all of the medicine we need within these communication networks, and it can be activated just by standing on the ground in bare feet and sitting in the sun. These studies that have been done on how the mitochondria react to sunshine literally shows the sun lighting up the cells, and we are becoming light inside of us. And that light then plugs into the Earth's magnetic field, and it regulates all of our circadian, as we ground, it plugs into the magnetic fields. And it literally gives us our connection to creation in a way that is synchronized. We become one with creation, and creation becomes one with us. As I sit in these classes, I just hear my Hasidus coming at me in a very secular way. There is no difference between us and nature, aka Hashem, right? That we are literally, in the secular science, the language they are using is that when the sunshine hits the mitochondria and it lights up, the humans on the planet become like batteries that are the spark of life. That was it for me. That was, as time has gone on this last couple of years, I've really shifted into, wait a second, all of these therapies and all of these products, herbs, homeopathy, they're all wonderful. But how do we live just a very simple life with just food and being in nature? And can we heal? Can our bodies turn on its medicine if we simply do that and connect with our thoughts, our meditations, our davening? Can we change our trajectory on a very toxic planet by doing that? And I have been blessed to see so many able to really transcend their human condition, their diagnoses, to go into remission, including my story, and really be able to go over and above what is happening to them on the planet today. So when you, like I said before, when you see that, you can't unsee that. So my call to action is, let's try to walk on the planet and plug in some of these, what I call prayerful practices that are very close to nature, and watch our body become the medicine that we need. One of the main things is water. Water is a real issue. There's, most people will tell you in my field that there's no clean water on the planet. But we can revitalize water. We can turn it into energy water. We can turn our food into life force energy. We can turn our breathing into life force energy. We turn our mitochondria into life force energy with the sun. And then when it comes to water, we create something called structured water, and we can turn that into life force energy. And basically what it is it's water that's moving. And it's water that is like a green drink, that when you put vegetables in, or when you put a squeeze of lemon juice in there. And this water can be purified and defragmented. The whole concept about what's happening, in my opinion, is that the unity that we seek may just be the unity that's within inside our body ecology. That if we can defragment that, the parts of us, and harmonize them together all in one, and hydrate them with this kind of energy water, and nourish ourselves with ancestral traditional foods, we can go over and above our nature. We have 10 metabolic terrains, and this fragmented, each one is fragmented. Whenever we see somebody that has a condition, a diagnosis, a symptom, we now understand that we shouldn't necessarily just pay attention to that. You know, God forbid, the cancer is a symptom, and it's made up of a lot of different things that have happened in the body. And if we can now take the wisdom of science and blend it with the wisdom of Torah, the blueprint for how we are to walk on the planet, we see that we can take the testing. You know, if there was a gift of COVID in my world, it was that just like that, alternative medicine went into Western medicine to get the deeper testing of metabolic terrains. And the Western medicine doctors we see are coming into the alternative medicine world and understanding nutrition and understanding what true nourishment is. And this beautiful synergy is really creating deeper tests that we can use that really give a very clear picture of the different fragmented pieces of us and how we can sew them together with very simple processes, with just food and maybe a little support from our wonderful practices of homeopathy and herbology and things like that. But the food alone, we are what we eat. We are what we bond with. We are what we think. We become it. So as we test and we listen to the symptoms are a communication from the body saying it needs something, or it's telling us how it's doing, right? And as we sew all these things together, we can really take a human and bring them into a higher level of consciousness. One of the other things that we are really keen on in the work that I do and in my tribe is meditation, as I'm sure you're all aware of the power of that. And just the opportunity to wake up every day and design your life in your visualization and open the pineal gland with a breathing technique can allow the body to believe that it is in a more pristine, unfragmented ecosystem where those mitochondria cells feel safe and they feel their potential, as opposed to staying in what happens now is the toxicity and the way of us being so fearful on the planet and with everything that's happening. We're in fight or flight more than we know. And the act of going into a very short morning visualization where we're doing breathing work that flushes out and detoxifies the pineal gland. And I'm focusing on the pineal gland because throughout a lot of traditions in the world, this is the window supposedly to the higher realms. This is the gland that helps that we tap into when we go into meditation. There's actually been scans on the brain that watch people do this and they see it open up, and it lights up too, by the way. And literally when it is open, it allows us to step into a higher level of consciousness. One of the things that is happening is that most of the toxicity, the clouds with the acid rain, the glyphosate in our food, the Wi-Fi has to go through the body, through the liver, through the organs, lands in our body, and it doesn't leave. So it also congests. And there's a few other things that really do affect the pineal gland more than a lot of the other glands. So the act of cleaning it out every day just does wonders for the way that you start your day and really unify all of the different terrains inside of your body. So as we plug all that stuff together, one of the things we do is we bond with the information, we do these kinds of activities, making food, the way we source our food really matters. I can't stress that enough. If you have to do one thing, it would be sourcing pure, clean, land rejuvenated food. There's a new buzzword out there. Organics are not quite what we think they are. So we're looking for land rejuvenation. We're drinking structured water. We're preparing our water by putting something into it that makes it something called easy water. It's a big science. I'm not going to go into it. We prepare our foods in a certain way. That's the other thing. We've gone away from our nourishing ancestral traditions of preparing our food before we eat it. In nature, our food we prepare on the branch or on the stalk or on the vine or in the soil. Most of the things that we eat need to be soaked and they need to be sprouted and they should be in some kind of fermentation. The way that we have the way we cook our foods. Bone broth is all the rage right now. And it is absolutely wonderful. It's one of the most healing things that you can drink, unless, of course, you're way too fragmented and your body can't handle it. So most of the people that I have to work with can't do bone broth. So we do something called a short boil broth, and we work our way up. Bone broth will detoxify. A lot of the foods, the biggest question I get is, what is the best diet? And I'm here to tell you they're all good. They're all food. And in the course of our life, you'll be all plant, all carnivore, and everything in between. And that sort of is a hunter-gatherer kind of way of being on the planet, right? There's not one diet. The better question would be, what season is my body in? What does it need to nourish? And it is very clear. It talks about to you with its symptoms and with the testing that we can do today. It tells you exactly where it's holding and what it needs. So when we are able to source our foods, make beautiful structured water, prepare our foods in certain ways that make them more bioavailable to the body, and activate our body in a higher level of consciousness with our visioning of a healthy body, of our connection to Hashem, we can literally harmonize all of the different terrains, and we infuse the body with the energy of the life force that allows us to step over and above this human condition of a toxic planet and a toxic body and tap into an elevated state of being. And I believe that that is a part of the story of us becoming supernatural. I believe that we go over and above where we find ourselves in our human condition today, and we tap in just by walking out of the constraints of our modern day life. And the way that we make change is with our pocketbook. I think that if we source the right foods, and pure water, it begins there. That is my story. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Chana Rus.
Yes.
So a few questions. Mm-hmm. Okay, so number one, it's so interesting because we had Shoshana Harari on yesterday, and somebody asked the question also, I think it was Ita, who I know you speak to. Ita asked the question about structured water. So basically she explained the minute you do reverse osmosis and you put the salt, the proper salt in the water, right? She only uses two different types of salt. One that she only uses, I think it's called Baja Gold or something in America.
Yeah, there's only two that we can find that are kosher for us.
No, it's not just the kosher. It's the the salt that I get in Eretz Yisrael actually is like almost wet because it's hand. They don't use any. It's hand. What's it called? Whatever you call that. They
grind it.
Yeah, not just grind it.
Harvested.
Right. Thank you. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for the word. So it's wet. It's actually quite big. It's very, very interesting. But I don't see you, Chana Rus. So no, I don't see you. So what's interesting is that she said that when you put lemon in the water, right, that what you're doing is you're making, everybody talks about alkalizing.
Yeah.
But she says that when you put with the lemon in the water and you alkalize the water, that it's not so good for our microbiome, because we're losing a lot of hydrochloric acid, that our body is not meant to be so alkaline, right? Our stomachs are not meant to be so alkaline, and it's just not a natural thing to keep doing that. It's just more natural to take the water and bring it into that state of mineralization, which makes it more stable, and then drink it that way. So that's what she said. So I wanted your opinion on that.
I think it's important for us to remember that every body ecology is wherever they are. It's holding wherever it's holding. And some people need that hydrochloric acid and some people don't. And that's why I'm really valuing being able to, I'm trained in listening to symptoms, right? I know how to have a communication with the body. And there's some people that will put lemon in their water. Everybody puts salt in their water. First of all, that's pretty much across the board. It's the kind of water we were made to drink. That's what I mean when I say plug into the blueprint of creation. There is enough Torah out there that tells us exactly, with the Rambam, we can really know exactly how we should eat. Now, because of the corruption and the corrosion on the planet and toxicity on the planet, we have to then look at each body and see where it's holding. So some people can have lemons, some people can't. And it depends on really detoxification. Plant-based diet is a diet that detoxifies, where a more meat animal-based diet is a diet that repairs, right? There is a season for everything. So I'm glad that you guys had that education. We don't always want to reach for detoxification. And that's what alkalizing does as well. It will, the lemon water in the morning that everybody has learned to do isn't necessarily what many of our bodies, but you need to know, and there's a way to know.
Okay, so what about, let's talk about, for example, the bone broth. So actually we have somebody on. I think Talia's on. Is Talia on? Talia.
I'm on.
Okay, so she is actually, Talia it lives in Pardes Chana. Talia is the bone broth queen, I call her.
Talia, you're selling bone broth. I have a lot of people that need some.
I do. It's my passion.
Problem is she can't get it. She can't deliver it to you. So when she came to Jerusalem, I bought a whole bunch. Right.
Wow. Okay.
Anyway, so
I will. I sure will.
So my question is, so someone asked for a recipe. You just have to go on YouTube. You can find a ton of recipes of bone broth. But my question to you is, let's say you are drinking bone broth to heal your microbiome, right? Because it contains a lot of collagen. It's like it
heals the digestive tract tissue. It's a connective tissue repair. That's exactly what it's doing. It remineralizes its amino acids, and it is necessary. It's what most indigenous traditional peoples on the planet, they lived. Everything went into a pot. You just made the broth.
No, you're right. Yeah. So my question is, let's say you're going into this repair system, right? How much, first of all, two questions. How much bone broth would a person start with and build up to? And when you're drinking the bone broth, can you eat the vegetables with it, or you have to completely just...
So we're back to, there's a season for everything. Most people that I work with that are over like a stage 3 or over, where they really do need some help in understanding what their body is saying it needs, cannot, sorry to tell you, but they can't drink bone broth. It is way too medicinal for them. The big thing that we're seeing we're starting to understand that, the Herxheimer reaction from detoxification isn't necessary. It isn't necessary if we listen to the body. So most people, when they lead out that I work with anyway, we do what we call a fatty meat stock. It has bones in it, but it has meat on the bones. And it's really like 70% fat. That's the fat that is really the biggest medicine out there right now. And as long as it's pure, by the way. Okay. And the organs and things like that. So as those people can't have the bone broth, because the bone broth, the longer it cooks, it produces a certain protein that causes a histamine reaction in the body. Now, when I say histamine, most people think allergies, like you're sneezing and, things like that. But histamine is also diarrhea, it's constipation, it's indigestion. There's a big list of what is histamine, inflammation and things like that. So we start off very slow and very gentle with just a couple hour broth. And yes, you have to drink it without the food in it. So we drink the broth alone with added fat. And then at times we have big bowls of soup with the stuff, with the meat or whatever it is. And then another question that usually comes up is, can vegans do the same thing? Can they heal themselves without the animal product? And they can. It's longer. They need supplements. They need some man-made help, but their digestive tracts can, it's the same story. It would be a short boil with them as well because of oxalates and lectins and things like that. And it is also eating. So we eat in between on an empty stomach. We try to get 2 16-ounce short boiled broths a day. And how do you know when you can move into bone broth? You try, you listen to your body. You're looking, like I have a client check-in that they have a list of all the things they need to listen for. And if everything is going okay, keep on boiling. If not, go back to just the short boil. And that's what, and every 6 weeks we try to change. We always try this idea of allergies and restrictions and gluten-free and all of that. It is not natural to us. That is not, restriction does not heal. And it actually, as time goes on, makes us fragmented and, God forbid, but sicker. So we want to always reintroduce the thing that we are allergic to. It's just, the allergy is just a communication that we're off, something's off. And it's the body doing something, it's building a mucous membrane that is trying to pull something out. It's the body doing something right for the input it's getting. So if I would love to just shift into a more geula-like words for health. It's not that we're fighting something. It's not that we're, sick or disease or disordered. The body is miraculous. And it is really, just understanding the level of toxicity and what it's able to do is amazing. So all we need to do is listen with a different heart and a different understanding. And the beautiful thing that's happening today is the education is out there, and it's tying quite nicely in with our Torah. And that was a godsend for me.
Right. No, so no, for sure. The more we become in harmony with all this, the more we become in harmony with the universe, with ourselves, with our soul, with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. That for sure. But what I want to ask is something tachlis, is when you're going into this bone broth, right? Let's say a person can do, first of all, what would be the histamine symptoms that a person would know that the bone broth is too much for them? That's number one. And let's say the bone broth is tolerated. Would you start your day off, besides the water in the morning, right? Would you begin your day, would you start off by doing only bone broth for a little bit? Like, how would you use bone broth?
So a lot of people, I didn't touch on the fasting. I missed a slide. Sorry. A lot of us start our days not eating, right? Like fasting we're understanding the power of fasting and whatnot, but you can actually have some bone broth while you're fasting. Most people, if you need to have a monitor and test to make sure you're not coming out of ketosis. But yes, of course, on an empty stomach, you want it to go in. The idea is that you want the body to not be digesting. And instead, it's going into repair mode. It's going in to nourish the places that it doesn't get to. The body will always choose digestion to work on first. So we need to give it a break, which is what we're understanding with the whole fasting craze that's out there. A, it's natural to us. B, humans eat entirely too much food. But we're eating so much because we're not nourished. We're not getting nutrients from our foods just because of leaky gut alone. And even if we're eating beautiful, pristine, organic foods or land rejuvenated foods, a lot of us are not absorbing what's inside of them. So yes, on an empty stomach, start your day with it. We try to get 1 to 3 16-ounce cups of broth in a day when we're on a healing journey. And that broth is actually preparing the body for the healthier input it's about to get. Like that is the main thing. That and fermented brine. We don't even eat the ferments. We drink the liquid from the ferments. And those two things, we have 6 stages that we go through to prepare the body for the healing journey. And I should mention that a healing journey is, we're really into like, I'll take a pill and I'll feel better. And the healing journey is long. Mine was 3 years. Most people land somewhere between 6 months to 2 years to bring the body to unify the fragmented parts of us. But it becomes a lifestyle. The transcendence is that we don't mind it. We're not trying to do this thing and go back to the way we were. The idea is that all the departments of our life transcend into a more holistic way to plug into creation.
But how would somebody know that bone broth? How would they know if they're having a histamine reaction?
Yeah, that's understanding. That's why I do a colloquium, because it's important that people learn what I know, right? That they learn the science. And there's a lot of symptoms, let's say it like that. There's a lot of symptoms in the body that are all histamine reaction, like most of them, by the way. So if you are drinking bone broth and you're getting a little tired after you eat it, you're getting that like low that we get like a lot of times when we eat grains and things like that. If you're just not going to the bathroom twice a day, like we're really supposed to eat and go potty. Like that's what we're supposed to do. Their elimination, right? If that's not happening, if there's any kind of inflammation in the body, if you're carrying weight, I have a plaque in my bathroom when I was going through my healing journey because I had gained almost close to 100 pounds. Being raw food vegan, by the way, really, like that's amazing, right? But what it was that the fat was literally absorbing all the toxins that were coming in and the fungi and all the stuff coming in to protect my organs. So the plaque I have from my girlfriend says, put on your big girl panties and deal with it. It saved your life. So that's how we know. So it's little things. It's little tiny things. It doesn't have to be. A lot of people do have the big allergies and then they just think it's pollen and stuff like that, right? It is like, I'm not saying that it's not, you're not allergic to the things that are bothering you, but the mucous membrane is building because the bone broth is the protein in the bone broth. So when you see the difference between, you just test it. Do a short boiled chicken soup that's like 2 hours, 3 hours long. We don't even put the veggies in. We do the meat. We do that for and then the last 20 minutes, then we put the veggies in because we're concerned about oxalates and things like that. And then we just drink it and we see what happens. And then we're always trying to reintroduce. I'm concerned about this allergy because I'm watching the chat as I'm talking. I'm not telling you to not restrict for your allergies. I'm telling you that there is a path for you to stop restricting, but there's a path. Don't just stop and try peanuts. Like, don't do that. So it's important that, it's hard. It's very hard in my field because a lot of the sound bites that come out of conversations like this will be, oh, bone broth's not good for you, or whatever, like it causes histamine and stuff like that. And it's not universal. And we're having it's part of a bigger refresher.
So Chana Rus, I think it's important to tell people that really when you talk about allergies, you're really talking about food sensitivities. But well, peanuts is right.
I am.
Right.
I'm gonna go out on the limb, and please don't just quote this one thing I'm about to say. Our body that's imbalanced, that is, if it's balanced and harmonized, there's no such thing as allergies. And the other bold statement that I've been going out and being on these panels and whatnot is that also the mental illness that's associated with the way that we eat. There is more to it than just a brain that's dysregulating. we understand that we are governed by our microbiome. And if there's healthy colonies in there, the fungi that govern us through our endocrine system, through our hormonal system, who create our thoughts, by the way, they will evolve to a more balanced way of being and regulating the way of our emotional and mental thought processes. Not that you can help yourself with diet alone, but it is a part of the equation that we can't let go.
So my question to you also is about the oxalates and the lectins. So there is specific foods that are, that we know contain lectins more than other foods, right? We know that tomatoes, the seeds in tomatoes, we know that the what's it called of almonds, the skins of almonds actually contains lectins and all these other different things. But if we're let's say we're using, the main onions, carrots, sweet potatoes, and everything is pretty much we're
peeling, soaking,
fermenting. We're peeling. So
Right.
what is the danger of the lectins and the oxalates?
Danger is a big word.
And isn't it also when you, Chana Rus, isn't it also the longer you're actually cooking the vegetable, aren't you also, like, why would you put the vegetable at the end because of the lectins? Wouldn't you want it, wouldn't you want to boil the vegetable longer because to get rid of the lectins?
That's also strong language. It doesn't necessarily get rid of it. The body produces these things on its own, right? So that's a big science. So we're not trying to get rid of lectins and oxalates and stuff. We're concerned if they react in our body in a certain way. So what we understand is detoxification can cause a Herxheimer reaction. What is that? That's oxalate dumping, lectins, it's just an overabundance. The body's holding on or building up too much. So the short boil as opposed to the long boil broths are mainly, they're not just about oxalates and lectins. They're about protein. They're about whether or not the body can go into a detoxification. There's a lot of different components that we're looking at. So we don't really need to even concern ourselves so much with that. I think the idea of trying to spot treat different things like oxalates, like proteins, like collagens and things like that, we need to kind of get out of the way of thinking about our health that way and making it a more harmonized way of being. Your body will naturally balance itself if it's being nourished. The thing that is stopping the nourishment is the toxicity. But there's a lot of this toxicity that we really can't do anything about. We're literally on a planet and we can only do what we can do. So how do we then go over and above that? We make sure that we are eating nourishing foods and sourcing them and preparing them in a certain way. And we don't worry too much about the things that may cause allergies. Okay, sweetheart, thank you for telling me. I'm talking to the ladies. I will in a little bit. See you later. See you later. Sorry. Anyway, I think that it's important that we take, one of the things that I do with my clients is we put together a health evaluation and then we put together a path. And the path is ever changing. Sometimes it changes in 24 hours. We listen to what the body says and we adjust for it. Sometimes we need a lot of plants. Sometimes we don't. And, there's how do we know what the body is saying? We have enough experience within our body has enough ancestral wisdom that it can tap into if we open up the path to that. So our job is really to create the environment, to change the environment, not the person. Let's change the environment, and then the body will speak to us in a way that we can say, oh, should I have a bunch of veggies today or not?
Okay, so
did I answer that question? I didn't answer it specifically, did I? Sorry.
No, you did. No, but there's so much to, some people say lectins, some people, we know we have to soak our grains because of oxalates, which fights for the same cell receptors as our minerals, right? So we know that we have to do those types of things. But this whole lectin thing is a little bit, it
So,
almost.
the more complicated we get with all of these different pieces of what makes us us, because we are what we eat, right? The I think I look at it like it's a deflection. It's a deflection from us doing what the real path is. And the real path would be, am I eating something that was raised humanely, sourced from land that's living? Am I plugging into Hashem's world in a way that is holistic? If I'm just the bread alone in our Jewish world, just our challahs, right? Like when I came home to Torah, I sat at my first Shabbos was at a house where I literally had to go into the bathroom with such a broken heart, crying, like literally had to pull myself together because what I saw on the table, we had let go of in the secular world like 15, 20 years ago. People knew it was toxic. And here it was that my tour journey home was not in a big community. Like literally we were on a tropical island in Southwest Florida and, going into the next town to go to shul and things like that. And so, I took my tour, I saw the eco sensibility in it. And then when I went into big cities and to communities, I saw the compromises and the convenience foods and it really, it actually was the catalyst for me having this voice that I have in the Torah world now. That, it is not complicated. We're focusing on the wrong things. We shouldn't be focusing even on histamine and lectins and all that stuff. The idea is that we need to be on nourishing foods, and the nourishing foods always start with short boil. You'll see indigenous peoples and tribes. I literally work with a woman named Mary Ruddick. That's somebody that you guys might want to check out. She's a food historian, and she lives with the last remaining tribes on the planet. And she really understands what these blue zones are and things like that. And she understands that the way the way of eating is outrageously simple. We have overcomplicated it. And always we start with short boils. That children start that way, and then they go into the longer boils. So, these principles that we use, that I'm trained to use by not just one doctor or scientist out there. I have a collection of 22 that we follow. And all of them pretty much are saying the same thing. Now, the details about the different activations in our body, they're interesting, they're helpful, they're communication. But the job of us is to just stay true to the environment, changing the environment to make it more pure, more holistic, more harmonized. And when we do that, we can literally see it in our blood testing. We can see it in the glucose levels in our veins. These days, I'm using monitors. I'm using carb counters. I'm using things to let people see what's happening in their body in real time. And then there's the symptoms. And when we start to understand what symptoms are, there's so many things that have become our normal that are symptoms of a defragmented body. Her name is Mary Ruddick. You're spelling it right. And she, they call her the Sherlock Holmes of food and disease. She has a very interesting story. She's a woman that was very sick. She was on her deathbed for, I think, 12 years, maybe longer, as a young woman. And she healed herself by eating soups, ladies. For 2 years, she ate soup. By the 6-month mark, her joy and her connection to God was, she was off the charts, excited and happy and joyful. Why do you see her? She's just all joy. She's pure joy. Really.
Chana Rus, I want to ask you another question. I know this is more of a so my question is with everything, let's say with the craze that's going on today about, fasting 17 hours with this, which reaches autophagy, right? The 14 hours, then, you have Mindy Pelt's 24 hours, 36 hours, changes the cellular mitochondria, et cetera, et cetera. What would you say about the level of stress that everybody is facing? And therefore, people are walking around with high cortisol levels without knowing that they have high cortisol levels. And yet when we fast, we actually take those cortisol levels and we make them even go higher, because we are putting the body in stress by that fast, and therefore the cortisol feels like fight or flight. It has to protect the body, et cetera, because it's not sure what to do. What's your take on that? And then also all the hormonal issues that everybody's going through, the crazy hormones that women are experiencing today, which most people, that's why there's metabolic disease, and that's why there's so much infertility, and that's why there's the plastics, the estrogen, the lack of testosterone, and on and on, and the progesterone issues. And so, like, how would you tell someone with high cortisol not to fast? Do not fast.
Not fast. No, we don't fast. You don't automatically fast. You will. Fasting is stress on the body. So is waking up, by the way. Our body naturally produces cortisol to wake us up, to get us started, to get on with our day. That's not happening for a lot of us, but that's what's supposed to be happening. So it's like anything else. Cortisol is not bad. It's just too much, right? There's just too much of it right now. There's a lot happening on the planet. And I think that fasting, the body, when it comes to like detoxification, repair, the kind of therapies that we use, when we, shall we say, dumb down to the bottom line root common denominator, which is food, which is the way that we move our bodies, how much sunshine we get, and how we connect to the earth itself. When we're paying attention to those things, your body tells you whether you should fast or not. The whole idea of mindful eating is that you should know what your body needs, right? But because, when it comes to our hormones, when it comes to these metabolic syndromes, the mast cell activations, all these kinds of things, this is literally a microbiome governing the body. It's an addicted, one of the doctors that I follow is the woman who started the GAPS diet, the gut and psychology syndrome and the gut and physiology syndrome. She literally has been my teacher for 30 years. And so, well, a little bit less, but she'll tell you that your microbiome is addicted. Like, we have little addicts of organisms, fungi, protozoa, microbials that are inside our body that are addicted to and they work through the endocrine system, and they create the hormones so they can get the dopamine hit or the cortisol hit or the serotonin hit. They literally do that. They will tell us what we're interested in eating. They will tell us what we should do, how we should do it. So they literally are the governors of our thoughts. So how do the idea is to change the environment and become supernatural. Like, literally over and above this, our natural instincts right now, they're off course. We're off course because the planet is not only physically toxic, it's also energetically toxic. And it's also toxic is a word, like, let's just lump everything into that, all the negatives, right? And so how do we step out of that? We literally simplify our lives, like really simplify. And that, healing is easy. And hearing your body is easy. What gets in the way for everybody is their thoughts. We are very much addicted to our habits and our thought processes, but not because we choose to. It happened to us. Most of us were born that way. Like what, when you hear 287 man-made chemicals in newborns' umbilical cord, come on, what shot do we have, right? Now, as most of you understand, I believe the revealed goodness in this is that we really truly are, with our free will, going to have to choose his will. That's what we're going to do here. Like people, there's no pill for most of these healing journeys. It's all about the way you walk your prayer, spend time in nature, spend time with your family, and the ancestral wisdom is the nourishing traditions.
Right.
And
we back to the beginning.
And that's
it. We
it is a beautiful, like this Elul for me at this 8-year mark of my going in the mikveh was so very clear that it's a return. It is a pure return. And it's hard to do because the world is so toxic. I'm living in a moldy house now and it almost killed me, over a decade ago, right? But I'm not afraid of it. And that's the difference. Like the cortisol, it doesn't rise. It's just now I have to do certain things until we can move from this house or do something about it. So that's what I mean. Like the consciousness that's required is very simple consciousness. It doesn't mean that I go out and look for new therapies and new herbs and like I would like to
connecting to what's real.
Yeah, like I would like to
simple, connecting to the simplicity.
If you get to the simple, like if you can eat soup and heal from what this Mary Ruddick healed from, like she had a bacteria go into her brain and it hit her whole nervous system. I mean, it's a pretty severe story. And she literally just ate soups. And so people say to her, keto, she had to do more low carb soups, keep the blood sugar out of the veins. But she literally, like people say to her, how could you just eat soups? And you think to yourself, well, if you're saving your life, you could just eat soups. Well, I'm a woman that had to sit in a sauna for 2 hours a day for 3 years and literally almost left the planet for potato chips. Like my dark night of the soul was like, I'm not drinking another broth, another green drink, and another almond milk. I'm not doing it. I want a real life. I want a regular, like, what was that? That is straight up addiction, guys. It's straight up.
Right.
That's exactly what we see in people that are addicted to other things. It's food addiction. And, I'm going to be so bold as to say, maybe it was done to us.
Right. Interesting. Okay. So I'm just going to answer quickly. Somebody asked, fish broth, two or more meat, because it's hard to get clean kosher meat bones. So I just want to tell you, Chaya, that actually everywhere, pretty much everywhere you can get organic. If you just do a lot of research, you can probably find organic grass-fed meat. So you can definitely do that. I would not make bone broth out of, it's pro-inflammatory rather than being, yeah.
Can I just chime in regarding the fish broth?
You'll do the fish bones in a second. Somebody asked how to make structured water. No, tell, I want you to answer. How can we make structured water? How do we identify the vegetables from the soil you were talking about? So structured water, if you just put some salt in it, Chana Rus says a little bit of lemon.
No,
no. Okay.
No,
okay. No, but I'm not talking about tap water, right? You're using distilled or reverse osmosis water, and then you're remineralizing it with proper, good quality salt. Then you're structuring your water, right? Aren't you at that point?
Close enough. We definitely need to have pure water.
Right.
Tap water is deadly.
Is deadly, right?
No matter where you live. Europe, at some places it's, but for the most part, if it's Israel, America, South Africa, don't go near it.
But there's my daughter uses, I can't remember what it's called, something pure, it's a filter, something pure. It's one of the best filters, water filters in terms of
Aqua. It's called Aqua Pure.
No, it's not Aqua Pure.
Oh, because that's what I use.
She uses this. She's done a lot of research and she uses tap water, but she puts it in, I can't remember, something pure. And it's this special purifier that she uses, that she's done a lot of research. It supposedly takes out a lot.
Rather than having,
yeah, I think it's more than just even a carbon filter. I can't remember the name of it. And then I'm gonna let Tal answer that question. Pipe in. Okay. Somebody else asked, lamb is cleaner. Can you make bone broth from lamb bones?
And then, and that pretty much, someone asked, what happens in winter when one cannot go barefoot in the sun?
You just, you can, there's certain kinds of shoes that we can wear that
Also-
allow, you have to be careful of the rubber, right? So a lot of the rubber soles, you want to get a shoe that will allow the energy to come through. So
what about grounding mats? What do you feel about grounding mats?
Grounding mats are good. They're good as long as people really understand the science and what they're plugging into. So a lot of people will plug into the third hole on a socket, and they're creating more. It's not really grounded in the way that it needs to be, and so there can be an issue with that. The other thing is, if you live in a place like I do in Miami, where there's a lot of storms, we have to unplug a lot of our things during a storm. So we have to, you really do need to understand the technology. I love them. I think that they work really well, especially for people that live in apartment buildings and things like that.
Right.
But whenever possible, in the winter, we wear shoes that don't have the specific rubbers on them, and we literally take a walk. You still go outside, no matter how cold it is. And, there's actually a big movement in my other department, parenting, homeschooling, alternative education. There's things called forest schools. And you're in Europe, and they were born in Europe, and I think there's one in Israel now. And there's a lot of them here in Florida. Florida's easy because it's always sunny, but the four season terrains, these kids are outside in the cold, around the fire. Like, they literally are keeping children outside and really understanding how to live within the elements the way that we were intended to. This idea, there's something called sick building syndrome. The idea that we are in our homes for so long, or in our offices, wherever it is wherever it is that we are, is really wreaking havoc on a lot of our body ecology.
Right. There's more indoor pollution. Okay, so I'm just gonna let Tal finish off. Tal, you wanna say something about the bone broth?
Yeah, I have a few things to say. Actually, my first client, who was a friend, she was diagnosed with, they actually didn't know what she had. She couldn't eat anything. And I had just read the book, the Weston Price book on bone broth. And I told her, just try bone broth. And she drank bone broth for 6 months. That was her only intake, similar to yeah, and she healed herself, and she still drinks the bone broth to this day. It's 10 years later. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've seen a lot of miracles. And yes, in the histamine, I've had 1 or 2 people have a histamine reaction, and they slowly built up. Right. Then I do a short boil for those people. I will do like a very short boil.
Yeah, I'm excited to get to know you. And so will a lot of other people know me.
Yeah.
What about the issue of those few questions that people ask, like the fish, the lamb?
Okay, so the fish in Israel, unfortunately, most of the fish is farmed fish. Yeah, and it's just as toxic as your meat, your non-grass-fed meat. So unless you know a fisherman, and I used to know one, but he stopped fishing.
Can I jump in and tell you one of the ways that the fish situation, one of my diagnoses was plasticizers, way back when nobody understood what that was, and it was plastics, and where does it come from? Eating fish and stuff.
Yeah,
right. So one of the things that we learned to do is ferment our fish.
Right.
So not that you should have it every day. All right. So because the fermentation doesn't clean it up, but what it does do for us is those bacteria go in, and they literally, they'll eat up a lot of the heavy metals, by the way. And also whatever yucky bacterias and things, toxins that are in there. Not all of them. It's a real, it's not the cure for fish, right? But it can, like for Shabbos, like most of my people in Israel, they'll ferment cans of tuna fish. We can do sardines and things like that. And then also some of the, the fish that have eaten the kibble
Okay,
and what
I've never done that. I've never fermented fish,
it's
but I'll
actually
try.
it tastes like lox to some degree.
Okay.
You know, it's not smoky, it's like a wet lox, I guess.
Okay.
But it's helpful because look, you know, this is the thing about restricting. Everything is toxic on the planet. If I would give you the list of every single food and what's in it, you guys would not eat anymore. Like, you know,
Right.
we really do. And this is what Hashem gave us, right? He's given us this, shall we call it an opportunity, a blessing, that we are now have no choice but to really understand where our food comes from. And that makes us educated consumers who then with our purse will make purchases that matter. Right.
And
That's how
that can drive you know, certain sectors to maybe produce that if we demand it.
Please. Yeah. I literally find myself very nervously speaking to, and right now it's been 3 Ravs so far in yeshivas, different yeshivas around, 1 in Israel and 2 over here.
Yeah. They're notorious for their food.
And well, that's why I'm speaking to them. The children are they're not doing well. And I literally have to say, listen, you know, like I'm going to start quoting Rambam to you, but you know, like, and it's all about, you know, it's always about money. It's, you know, listen, go get a bunch of mothers and let them make the food, like whatever you got to do. Like, you know, somebody, you know, we are giving up so much for our convenience and our comforts. And it really is heartbreaking to me because, well, you know, my story is many of the people that were closest to me passed away because of the choices they made, not from the illness. It was the choices. And I'm a woman on a mission. I'm done. I'm done with these choices.
Okay, guys, we are literally hitting 2 hours.
All right.
So
I just wanted to answer the lamb. Yes, you can do lamb. Not everybody likes, you know, lamb, but yeah, you can do any bones. Traditional cultures would use anything and chicken, whatever they had, you know, as long as you're sourcing.
A mix of all of it, or a mix.
Right.
And organs, don't forget organs. Organs are really, really important.
Right.
Okay, guys, I will share Chana Rus's information. I did already. If you went on to, I put out her whole bio, and in her bio is all her contact information. So it's all there. All you have to do is scroll in the WhatsApp. Again, I cannot. First of all, I want to thank Chana Rus so much. This was so incredible, and I want to just tell you the Hakaras Hatov, because, like, it's like, you know, it's you're giving us your time, you know, your wisdom, your knowledge, all the years that you've studied, what you do, you know, this is part of what you do. So the fact that you come out and you give us this from your whole heart and soul, and I know how much love you have and how much you are so passionate about the subject, and how you're so connected to all the parts of how it works together between the universe and, you know, us and our souls and HaKadosh Baruch Hu and everything together. And I know it's your life's mission. I know you've been through so much yourself, you know, lots of things that. So I just want to thank you. I really want to thank you. And I can't thank you enough. And I will make sure that everybody knows your information. So if they want to take that course, when is that course starting, Chana Rus?
It's ongoing all the time. I did we're right in the middle of the 15-day Elul, and now we're
going
to
go. When are you starting?
You can start any day. You can start any day.
So if I want to come into it, I can start.
You can start any day, anytime that you want. We're going to go through the high holidays. We're going to, you know, you don't have to compromise your health when, you know, with a hug. We just don't have to do that with our festivals. We can really make it tasty and really connect it to, you know, the food is tikkun for us, right? So it's not just the way we bless our food. There's a whole story around that, as, you know, one of your guests this week talked about. So yeah. Come on in and play with us. We're women, you know, it's the women, it's the mothers, we are the ones bringing the gula. And as the Babach Rebbe says, it is right here. I've tasted it. I've seen it in my life, little glimpses, and it's easy. It's easy. We can pull the veil back. We really can.
Okay, thank you, Chana Rus. Amazing, 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 amazing. Thank you so much.
My
And
pleasure.